Can a feud actually be good for business? Well, you be the judge. Here are 10 fast food fights that will never be forgotten. Who's on first?
On the St. Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Fast food and its fast feuds have existed for decades as long-standing chains push each other for market supremacy. Some chains have existed longer than others, and more than one modern chain lays a stake in being the first out of the gate. While McDonald's is widely recognized as the godfather of modern fast food by innovating a cookie-cutter-style production line system, they weren't the first joint to sell food at a faster pace than traditional sit-down restaurants. One of McDonald's early burger-slinging slogans, "Buy 'em by the bag," is eerily similar to White Castle's "Buy 'em by the sack," a marketing tool the Castle debuted way back in 1927 when they became the first food establishment to offer paper bag carryout. The folks at White Castle claim their crown as the world's first fast food hamburger chain by expanding locations in 1921. But root beer royalty chain A&W can trace their teen burger tossing days back to a roadside stand in 1919 before they officially started franchising in 1925, which would give them rights as the true pioneers. And although White Castle's square patty sliders were a huge success in the 1920s, Dave Thomas would piggyback and popularize the square snack in full-size burger form when he founded Wendy's restaurants in 1969. So maybe it doesn't matter who started what or where and when, as long as it all tastes great. Popeyes and KFC.
I flew all the way to Kentucky to get some of your fried chicken, and the Colonel isn't even working today?
When you're in a heated rivalry with someone, it's probably best not to chicken out. That is, of course, unless chicken is exactly the business you're in. When Popeyes Louisiana Fast Chicken entered the scene in 1972, it was already 20 years behind Colonel Sanders' Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise. But ever since, they've kept pecking away at the lead. Popeyes has come on in recent years, winning the spicy chicken sandwich wars and grabbing some pop culture notoriety in the year 2000 Adam Sandler film Little Nicky. They've also made headway overseas, opening their first ever UK franchise in 2021.
Tell me about you. The Harlan Sanders story.
While the progress is great, KFC remains the unquestioned chicken king. United Kingdom expansion sounds great, but they have some catching up to do since the Colonel already has over 1,000 locations over there. Add to that their total of 27,000 franchises across the world, whereas Popeyes weighs in at just over 3,400 total locations. As an unquestioned number 2 in the chicken wars, Popeyes will, for now, have to let KFC keep clucking all the way to the bank. Pizza Hut versus Domino's.
Is that weird, Paul? Look around, we're in a Domino's.
It's pizza time! 2 popular pie franchises have gone back and forth at each other over the years, and unlike the other one-sided feuds, the tide actually turned in this one. It seemed the two were destined to compete from the outset, with Domino's opening its first location in 1960, a mere 2 years after Pizza Hut stepped onto the scene. In the coming decades, it was the Pizza Hut pie guys winning the race, and by the mid-1990s, they had more than doubled Domino's market share to the tune of 25% to 11%. But eventually, underdog Domino's caught up. Spurred by an honest ad campaign about the lesser quality of their pizza, Domino's gained traction in 2010 by announcing they'd completely reworked their recipes, ingredients, customer service, and overall quality. They also modernized the delivery game with the state-of-the-art digital ordering and tracking techniques. The overhaul worked, and by 2016, Domino's stock price had risen significantly, and 1 year after that, they finally overtook Pizza Hut in total sales. The only thing that tastes better than revenge just might be pizza, but in this case, Domino's gets to have both. Subway versus Blimpie.
I don't believe this. Come on, Subway, there is no way you're 5'10".
Here's another tale of the second horse in the race finishing first. Blimpie kicked down the barricades for the high-speed hoagie market when they first opened in 1964, but Subway was hot on their heels when they were founded just 1 year later. While Blimpie opened a lot of fast food avenues that would eventually become standard, like having locations in shopping malls instead of street corners.
Like those poor guys who had to come up with a new ad campaign for Subway.
It was Subway's innovation to fully customize sandwiches that eventually won out. By the end of the century, Blimpie had less than 150 locations across the United States. Subway was victorious as the millennium turned, but a new challenger would soon emerge. Subway versus Jimmy John's.
High quality stuff.
High quality? For a sandwich?
Achieving national success on the back of their healthy eating image, Subway's Eat Fresh ad campaign saw them expand globally to over 16,000 locations across the world by the year 2000. And in 2010, they even had a larger global footprint than McDonald's. They hit the summit in 2015 with 27,000 locations in the USA and another 18,000 worldwide. But their aggressive franchising policy saw a drop in quality across the board, and sales suddenly plummeted. Just 5 years after its peak, Subway had closed nearly 6,000 locations. And as Subway shrinks, Jimmy John's has picked up the pace. With 2,700 locations in 43 states, they've recently announced a 20-restaurant expansion into California. It's a long way to go, but the faster Subway falls, the quicker Jimmy John's continues to rise. First time here? Then hit that subscribe button and never miss out. Now, back to the battles. Thanks! DQ versus Baskin Robbins.
And designing the ice cream to accumulate into scoops, I don't know how you're gonna top this.
The fight for frozen sweet treat victory is surprisingly not being waged on the sunny beaches of America. Over the last decade, the battleground for this competition has been China. DQ announced expansion plans in 2009, wanting to add to their footprint of over 170 Chinese locations they already had. Baskin Robbins had seen prior success in Japan and Korea and decided to try its hand in China right after DQ entered the market. By 2013, their 31 flavors had 90 locations in China, and they announced plans to expand by another 250 over 10 years.
The scooping hurts our wrist.
That sounds great, but they'll still have to bow down to the true Dairy Queen. There are 1,100 DQs in China as of 2022, and they've just announced a 600-store expansion over the next 8 years. Dunkin versus Krispy Kreme.
Love Dunkin, guy. What are you talking about?
The donut showdown is a simple one. Krispy Kreme has a higher price point, but only because it offers a chef's recipe glaze on their donuts that give them a more bougie quality. That carefully crafted flavor repeatedly tests better than their Boston-based competitor. Dunkin, on the other hand, offers a wider variety of donuts at a lower price point, but they aren't preferred as much when up against Krispy Kreme's. But what's a donut without a good cup of coffee? And that's where Dunkin has found the advantage. By 2015, the company estimated over 60% of its sales came from beverages instead of foodstuffs, finding more success with their Joe than their dough, while 87% of Krispy customers are strictly in it for the sweets. In the rivalry between coffee and donuts, just give up the fight and get one of each. The Cola Wars.
Okay. Wow, so angry.
The most important part of any fast food meal might be the ice-cold fountain drink you wash it down with. For over a century, one rivalry between refreshing beverages has transcended the food service industry: Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Even after over 100 years in competition, any server who dares to ask, "Is Pepsi okay?" or vice versa, is likely to start a lively debate that just might wreck your lunch break. Dubbed the Cola Wars by historians and the media, the battle peaked in the 1970s and 80s, but the roots of the rivalry stretch back to 1886. Coke controlled the market share for the first several decades, with Pepsi struggling enough to officially file for bankruptcy in 1923 and again in 1931. Pepsi finally found some stability when it merged with the Frito-Lay snack company in 1965, setting the stage for a major escalation of the Cola Challenge, specifically the Pepsi Challenge. In 1975, Pepsi opened up blind taste tests to consumers that they dubbed the Pepsi Challenge and let customers choose which of the two soft drinks they preferred in flavor. It was a landslide win for Pepsi, and not just as a marketing gimmick. Coke went into a panic and tweaked their famous 90-year-old secret recipe to more replicate the sweeter flavor of Pepsi.
How do you even drink that?
Because it's delicious.
They dubbed it New Coke and released it to the market in 1985 under the assumption it would be a massive success. Instead, it was a disaster. Coke fans turned away from the product in droves, unimpressed with the changes to their familiar formula. However, instead of switching to Pepsi, Coke customers organized rallies and signed petitions to bring back the original recipe. Less than 3 months after New Coke was introduced, the company listened to the masses and brought back the original as Coca-Cola Classic, and sales boomed once again. Pepsi continued to be largely doomed to second place, and Coca-Cola has surpassed them in annual sales every year since. The New Coke disaster was the peak of the Cola Wars and turned into a backward success. As of 2019, Pepsi had only a 24% share of the soft drink market, compared to Coca-Cola holding almost half of the market at 43%. Burger King and McDonald's.
Give us 20 Whoppers and 20 chicken fries.
The heated rivalry of liquids and the Cola Wars could only be matched by the beefy brawl of the Burger Wars. Much like their Cola compatriots, this war has one clear winner against a number 2 that has been a consistent thorn in their side, but continues to push the envelope on innovation. Ever since McDonald's pioneered the very concept of modern fast food, there have been copycats and competitors, and Burger King is on top of that list. When businessman Ray Kroc launched the modern McDonald's in 1955, he created an empire of chain restaurants, and a visit to one of those restaurants created its biggest competitor. Businessmen Keith Kramer and Matthew Burns visited the original McDonald's and knew there was a way to replicate the strategy, setting to work on their own design, the Insta-Burger King. BK first took serious aim at McDonald's in the 1970s after the famous Big Mac was introduced to McDonald's customers. While the Mac was marketed with a very specific jingle that listed all the sandwich's ingredients, Burger King went in the other direction. They came out with an ad campaign introducing their still-in-use "Have It Your Way" slogan that pushed for customization of menu items instead of McDonald's rigidity. Although allowing customers to edit their toppings slowed down service times, it was a hit with the audience and soon became the industry standard. The King went directly after Ronald McDonald again in 1981 with an ad campaign that claimed Mickey D's burger patties were 20% smaller than their own. The campaign also used disparaging tactics, calling out gaps in the side-by-side differences in quality, taste, and preparation between the two restaurants, such as broiling versus frying. While the ads sparked some serious buzz, they also sparked a serious lawsuit when an angry McDonald's sued BK and called the advertisements, quote, "false, deceptive, disparaging, unfair, and misleading." While the lawsuit was eventually settled, BK's tactic of using direct comparisons and campaigns against one another later became widely used throughout the industry. Mars and Hershey.
Some kind of fun house?
Why, having fun?
The Battle of Willy Wonka wannabes stretches back to the turn of the last century. It was the late 1880s when Milton Hershey found his calling to produce sugary sweets by opening the Lancaster Caramel Company. By 1894, the business had expanded, and in 1900, Milton sold his caramel company for a whopping $1 million, $32.5 million adjusted for today. The first Hershey's milk chocolate bar was sold that year, and the rest is history. And only a few years before it all started, Hershey's biggest rival would come into the fold when its founder, Frank Mars, was born in 1883. A second-generation candy maker, Frank was working in candy factories by the time he was 19 and opened up his own in 1911. While they ultimately closed up shop, it was the first step in the creation of the Mars Candy Company. Frank's son, Forrest Mars, entered the family business with the creation of the Milky Way bar in 1923.
Can I have that Milky Way?
No, you can't have the Milky Way.
Which was a big enough hit for the team to open up a new factory in Chicago. From there, Frank would invent the Snickers bar and the Three Musketeers bar only 2 years apart, while Forrest debuted the Mars bar in 1932 and M&M's in 1941. The two companies have been first and second in the chocolate market ever since. Like other food rivalries, they remain in competition even today, but one of the chocolate champions is the clear leader. Hershey leads the charge with a larger share of earnings and market share. At least when you're in the chocolate business, second place can still taste sweet. No need to fight for more great videos, just tap or click. Leave us a comment, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell.